Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. And a lot of times, some of these things happen, and it's just uncomfortable to see.
Stephen A. Smith has just released a leaked clip involving Molly Qerim, and it might flip everything upside down. Even though she already parted ways with ESPN, this shocking footage could completely destroy what remains of her public image and career legacy. What once stayed hidden in secrecy has surfaced, and it might be the ultimate hit to her reputation. Stephen A. Smith truly changed the entire narrative for Molly Qerim. September 15, 2025. It started like any other Monday for Molly Qerim, hosting First Take, totally unaware that her world was about to collapse. She ran the show the same way she had for nearly 10 years, keeping Stephen A. Smith and the other analysts balanced, managing egos, and making sure everything ran smoothly. She signed off that day with her usual goodbye, not realizing it would be the final time she'd ever sit in that chair. But then, things went off the rails. That evening, Sports Business Journal dropped a bombshell. Qerim was leaving ESPN by the end of 2025, after contract discussions completely disintegrated. Now, picture being Molly, at home, relaxing after a normal day, when suddenly your phone started exploding with notifications because your private contract drama just hit every sports outlet in America. The effect was instant and brutal. Qerim felt blindsided and went on Instagram that same night, posting a message that showed how shaken she really was. This wasn't how I wanted this news to come out. Think about it. 10 years of your work life suddenly exposed in the harshest, most public way possible. Then came the twist no one predicted. Instead of finishing out her deal through December as planned, Molly shocked everyone at ESPN with a decision that rocked the company. She walked out immediately. Not next week, not later, right then. ESPN President Burke Magnus later broke down what happened. The only surprise here was the timing. She, Molly, released a statement because a report came out. After that, things just spun out of control. This wasn't a planned farewell or a warm send-off filled with tributes. Insiders called it an emergency exit. And no one captured that better than former ESPN host Marcellus Wiley, who explained everything perfectly.
Emergency exit. This is an emergency landing.
Wiley recognized what others didn't. This wasn't only about salary or contract details. Something far deeper was unfolding, and he laid it out clearly.
Therapist told me, it's not just how things end, it's why are they?
That's the million-dollar question, he said. Why did Molly walk out like that? Why show up on Monday, then disappear from the entire network by Tuesday morning? September 16, 2025 turned into one of the most uneasy mornings in First Take history. Take history. Viewers who tuned in expecting to see Stephen A. Smith and Molly Qerim were instead met with Stephen A. sitting alone at the desk, clearly emotional as he prepared to announce the news that would shift everything.
He resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite...
The emotion in Stephen A. Smith's voice was unmistakable. But pay close attention to what he said next, because this is where the story starts to get really intriguing.
Friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times, some of these things happen.
Now, Stephen A. tried to maintain professionalism, but then he dropped a comment that raised more than a few eyebrows.
We are none of y'all business, but it's not as if I know all the details.
Hold on, let's break this down. Stephen A. just told everyone that the situation was private, yet seconds later, he began sharing the very details he said were off limits. He claimed he didn't know everything, yet talked about the failed contract talks in depth. Naturally, fans were confused, and they weren't alone. But what truly grabbed attention wasn't what Stephen A. said. It was what Molly didn't say. When she released her farewell statement on Instagram, she thanked the fans, the crew, and the show itself. But one thing stood out like a flashing red light to insiders. She never mentioned Stephen A. Smith by name. Not once. Not even indirectly. Now, think about that. When other co-hosts leave big shows, they usually go out of their way to express gratitude. When Shannon Sharpe departed Undisputed, he He spent nearly 10 minutes listing names and sharing thanks. But after spending a decade beside Stephen A. Smith, helping build one of the most successful sports talk shows ever, Molly Qerim didn't mention him at all. As one industry source put it perfectly.
And you don't even give them that partner heads up on air. Hey, we did this thing together. This thing is...
That silence said everything. The tension between Molly and Stephen A. wasn't only about work. It ran deeper, hinting at personal issues the public never saw. But then, the plot thickened even more. Marcellus Wiley, who knows his business inside and out, caught on to something subtle about the way Molly chose to lead.
Molly want to go out in a blaze. Coming to work Monday and then I ain't coming to work no more. Y'all figure it out. Stephen A. abruptly.
Interview 524, 535. This was sharp insight. Wiley understood that Molly's departure wasn't impulsive. It was strategic. She wanted people to notice. She wanted her absence to echo. And what better way to send that message than by making Stephen A. Smith host First Take entirely alone, showing viewers exactly how much she meant to the show's dynamic and success.
That's usually an inner cry of yo, I want to be noticed. I want y'all to know. I want y'all to feel me. I want y'all to hear me. I want y'all to see me. See how I go out, right? With a bang. She went out with a...
Interview 552, 608. This wasn't a simple resignation. It was a declaration about self-worth, contribution, and the lack of respect she felt inside the network. And the deeper you look behind the curtain, the clearer it became that Molly Qerim had every reason to feel betrayed. The sports media industry couldn't stop talking about it. But nobody truly grasped what had gone wrong until new details surfaced about the contract talks and the internal power balance within ESPN. Because what eventually came out about how these negotiations were actually handled and who held the real influence behind them completely shifted the public's perception of this entire saga. What unfolded next peeled back the curtain on some uncomfortable realities about how business is really conducted inside ESPN. And Stephen A. Smith's involvement would soon become one of the most crucial elements of the story. The money, the authority, and the quiet betrayal all came to light. Now, we reached the core of the situation, the financial negotiations and power struggle that shattered a decade-long partnership. Once you hear the figures involved and discover who was manipulating things behind closed doors, you'll understand exactly why Molly Qerim felt she had no other option but to walk away in such a dramatic way. Let's start with the money, because that's where the tension began. According to several reliable insiders, Molly Qerim was earning around $500,000 a year as the host of First Take. Now, $500,000 might seem substantial to most people, but when placed in context with what was happening around her at ESPN, it becomes downright infuriating. Sitting right beside her every morning, Stephen A. Smith was taking home more than $20 million annually. Yes, $20 million. That means Stephen A. was earning roughly 40 times more than Molly. Even though both were vital to one of the network's most successful shows, what made it sting even more was this. While Molly was fighting for respect and fair pay, she had to watch other ESPN talents who didn't even host daily programs getting compensated far better than she was. Imagine how demoralizing that felt. You're co-hosting the network's flagship morning show, yet you're being underpaid compared to people leading smaller, inconsistent programs. Now, Molly wasn't just seeking a raise. She was advocating for career growth within ESPN. Specifically, she wanted an opportunity to lead her own show, similar to how Max Kellerman transitioned from First Take contributor to independent host. That's not a wild demand. It's a logical next step for a 10-year veteran. But ESPN's response exposed everything about a hierarchy. Not only did they reject a request for new opportunities, they also refused to significantly increase her salary for the role she already had. In essence, the message was simple. You can stay where you are for about the same pay, or you can leave. No growth, no recognition, no real reward for loyalty. Here's where things turn darker. We have to address Stephen A. Smith's position in all this. Stephen A. isn't just the on-air face of First Take. He's also an executive producer, giving him major influence over critical decisions like personnel, budget, and creative direction. Now think about that imbalance. Molly was negotiating her contract with someone who literally shared the same desk every morning, someone who directly benefited from keeping her salary capped, since it allowed more budget flexibility for his own projects. When Stephen A. Smith calls First Take his show, it's not just ego, it's a reflection of actual power. The true scope of Stephen A.'s influence within ESPN became undeniable once certain behind-the-scenes accounts began circulating. And what those accounts revealed about how things really operated shocked everyone.
For you, you get what you want. But guess what? There's a flip to it as well. When he doesn't sign off on you, when he doesn't sign for you.
This power imbalance sheds light on what's happened with several First Take figures over the years. Think about Kerry Champion, Max Kellerman, and Shannon Sharpe. All talents who left under circumstances hinting they didn't have Stephen A.'s full backing. The Shannon Sharpe example is especially revealing. Industry insiders pointed out that Stephen A. seemed to have prior knowledge of Sharpe's exit and was quick to comment publicly even as events were still unfolding. That implies Stephen A. Smith was part of the executive discussions shaping personnel outcomes, meetings Sharpe himself wasn't invited to. Now let's focus on what truly unfolded during Molly's contract talks, because this is where the betrayal becomes undeniable. Reports surfaced that Fox Sports approached Molly Qerim with a proposal valued at $2 million per year for 3 years, plus bonuses. So here's the picture. Molly had an outside offer that would quadruple her salary. She asked ESPN either to match it or provide new opportunities to justify her loyalty. But instead of fighting to keep one of their most vital personalities, ESPN's answer was cold and final. Take it or leave it. What came next made things even worse. After Molly's exit became public, rather than staying silent and allowing her to leave gracefully, Stephen A. Smith made remarks that exposed far more than he should have. Remember what he said on the first show after her departure.
That we deem to be in our best interest, for whatever reason. And that story is for her to tell. Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No.
At first, everything sounded respectful. Stephen A. claimed he wouldn't share private details. But only a few days later, on his podcast, he said something that left viewers stunned. He began discussing contract negotiations in so-called general terms, though it was obvious to anyone paying attention that he was referring to Molly.
What he said next.
But when you have negotiations and you're talking with people and you're going back and forth and you're hearing things that you may not want to hear or feeling things you may not want to feel, even though you're valued, even though people acknowledge those kind of things, we live in a world where we have...
He kept insisting he wasn't talking about Molly, yet continued describing situations involving hosts overvaluing themselves and falling by the wayside.
Watching over the last several years, people in this business fall by the wayside because we forget that all of us ultimately answer to people. We don't get to define our own value.
By that point, confusion turned to outrage. Stephen A. was saying he wasn't addressing Molly, but had just spent several minutes indirectly doing exactly that, talking about negotiations, egos, and consequences. Who else could he possibly mean? Then he drove the point home with one final, revealing statement.
Can all evaporate in a snap if you lose perspective and you forget that everybody, and I mean everybody.
This is where many people began piecing everything together. Stephen A. Smith was effectively delivering a lecture about knowing your place, about not overestimating your value during contract negotiations, and remembering that everyone answers to someone. And he did this just days after his co-host of 10 years had left feeling underpaid and disrespected. The message couldn't have been clearer. Molly Qerim had, in his view, overplayed her hand. She'd forgotten her place in the hierarchy, and now she was paying the price. Whether Stephen A. meant to imply that or not, that's exactly how insiders took it. And that leads to the most controversial section of this entire ordeal. What Stephen A. said next caused such an uproar that fellow media figures started publicly calling him out. When you hear his words in full context, you'll understand why so many felt Stephen A. Smith had completely betrayed his longtime colleague. Stephen A.'s hypocrisy exposed. What follows is the most explosive part of the story. Not just his comments about Molly, but the fact that his own contract history proves the staggering hypocrisy behind every word he said. By the time you finish this, you'll see why Stephen A.'s Know Your Worth speech might be one of the most hypocritical moments in sports media history. So, we left off with Stephen A., making those supposedly general remarks about contract talks and overvalued talent. But then he took things further, into uncomfortable territory. He began delivering what sounded like a masterclass on humility in negotiations, insisting that a broadcaster's main responsibility is to make money for the company before respectfully asking for their share. The clear implication? Molly Qerim had misread that equation. Too demanding, not humble enough. But here's where the whole thing flips upside down, and it's the part mainstream outlets have carefully avoided discussing. Stephen A. Smith preaching humility in contract negotiations is like the pot calling the kettle black, because his own record of contract drama is nothing short of chaotic. Let's rewind to Stephen A.'s 2024 contract battle with ESPN, when he publicly demanded $25 million per year and turned the whole ordeal into a full-blown media circus. The man appeared on multiple podcasts, gave interviews, and practically staged his negotiations in public view. So much for quietly making your boss's money and humbly asking for your cut, right? It gets even better. During those same 2024 talks, Stephen A. went on the OG's podcast and accused critics of trying to sabotage his deal. He claimed people were conspiring against him, saying, "You think I haven't noticed esteem is elevated since my contract's coming up? You think I'm that stupid?" This is the same person who would later scold others for overvaluing themselves. He even accused NBA players of trying to tank his negotiations because they disliked his commentary about them. Then Stephen A. doubled down by addressing Molly's situation, while conveniently forgetting his own past behavior. But wait, let's recall what Stephen A. himself said during those very negotiations. When questioned about reports that he wanted $100 million over 5 years, he compared himself to Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. See the hypocrisy yet? Stephen A. Smith telling Molly Qerim to stay humble, not to find her own worth, and remember her place, while he once fought publicly for superstar-level money, makes his lecture sound more like projection than principle. Remember, everyone has a boss. But when it came to his own negotiations, Stephen A. Smith did the complete opposite. He loudly declared his worth in public, compared himself to NFL quarterbacks, and proudly stated he'd never apologize for knowing his value. Yet, the hypocrisy ran far deeper. Stephen A.'s contract history is packed with dramatic exits, public, feuds, and ego-fueled choices. Back in 2008 to 2009, he was actually fired from ESPN after a dispute over his deal, spending 10.5 months unemployed. He later admitted that his own ego had clouded his judgment and cost him the job. So when Stephen A. said this about people falling by the wayside in contract talks,
And you forget that everyone, and I mean everyone,
he was literally describing his own story from 2008 to 2009. He'd overvalued himself, lost perspective, and paid the price. Yet here he was years later, lecturing Molly Qerim for supposedly making the same mistake. By this point, the sports media world was getting uncomfortable, not only because of what Stephen A. was saying about Molly, but because the double standard was glaring. And no one captured that discomfort better than Emmanuel Aiko, who went off on Stephen A. during his Speak Easy podcast.
I don't know the details. What are you doing? What are you doing, man?
Like he said this. He said she abruptly resigned. That's the deep.
Aiko called out the contradictions everyone saw. Stephen A. claimed he wouldn't reveal details while revealing details. He insisted he didn't know everything, while clearly implying he did. That was the heart of the problem. By tossing around phrases like abruptly resigned and making cryptic references to uncomfortable situations, Stephen A. Smith created a narrative suggesting something explosive had happened. But then he refused to clarify, leaving the public to assume the worst. And the irony? During Stephen A.'s own 2024 contract saga, he was the one making it dramatic, appearing on multiple shows, giving interviews and turning private negotiations into a headline circus. Yet, when Molly's business became public, through no fault of her own, he criticized her for how it was handled.
I also wonder, bro, like from a human perspective, Molly was your sidekick for 10 years. We don't need to know she abruptly resigned.
Yeah.
Then came the line that perfectly summed up how everyone felt.
Cost do you get the click, Social Trade?
Yeah,
like,
right, yeah.
don't get clicks at cost of Molly.
Yeah, no, that's not.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like, not Molly. Get clicks at cost of some stranger you don't know or some viral video.
Right, yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
You want to get clicks at the cost of LeBron James? I get it.
Yeah.
But don't get clicks at the cost of a person that's helped you build your empire.
The hypocrisy became even harder to ignore when you remember Stephen A. Smith's long pattern of turning his contract drama into content. During his 2024 negotiations, he literally used the entire ordeal to fuel his podcast, The Stephen A. Smith Show, and his TV segments, monetizing his own contract controversy for clicks, buzz, and engagement. When Molly's situation went public, Stephen A. Smith acted as though she had crossed a line. Let's look at how wildly hypocritical that really was. Remember what Stephen A. said about people overvaluing themselves? Well, in September 2024, during an appearance on Who's Talking to Chris Wallace, he literally said, "I'm fully aware of what I'm worth," when discussing his own contract demands. So apparently, it was fine for Stephen A. Smith to define his own value, but Molly Qerim wasn't allowed to do the same. Here's where the hypocrisy cuts even deeper. During his own negotiations, Stephen A. repeatedly argued that he deserved top dollar because of the ratings, revenue, and cultural impact he brought to ESPN. He proudly claimed his numbers justified the massive salary he sought. Yet when Molly made the exact same argument, pointing out her importance of first-take success, he implied she was overvaluing herself. Meanwhile, Marcellus Wiley was digging deeper into what really happened behind the scenes, and his insight exposed even more contradictions.
How Stephen A. Smith has that pull. Stephen A. Smith even talked about that when he checked Cam Newton recently, talking about, hey, I've hooked a lot of guys up with money around.
He was referring to Stephen A.'s influence over other people's contracts at ESPN. The suggestion? That Stephen A. Smith had helped certain colleagues negotiate better deals. But when it came to Molly, he didn't use that same influence to help her. And here's the real kicker. Stephen A. had no issue using every ounce of his own leverage during his negotiations. He wielded his executive power, his audience pull, and his industry connections to secure better terms. But apparently, when Molly Qerim tried to do the same, that was unacceptable.
Those in the industry who that person is, but no need to out him. The point is, that person, along with Stephen A. Smith, ain't seeing the talent, not seeing the love for Molly Qerim.
That revelation was explosive. Wiley implied that Stephen A., along with select ESPN executives, may have actively worked against Molly's interests. Yet the hypocrisy couldn't be clearer. During his own contract disputes, Stephen A. Smith expected full support from top executives, and when he didn't get it, he went public, turning his personal negotiations into national headlines. The final blow to Stephen A.'s credibility came when people examined what he did right after landing his massive new deal. Just months after signing his $100 million plus contract extension, he struck another lucrative deal with SiriusXM, reportedly worth $36 million over 3 years. So much for humility and gratitude. The more details surfaced, the more obvious it became that Stephen A.'s comments about Molly weren't just tone deaf. They were a masterclass in hypocrisy. This was coming from someone whose entire career has revolved around self-promotion, public contract battles, and never settling for less than what he believes he's worth. And the timeline makes it even more damning. In 2008 to 2009, Stephen A. Smith did exactly what he was now condemning Molly for, overvaluing himself in contract negotiations, clashing with ESPN leadership getting fired, and spending 10.5 months unemployed. He later admitted his ego had cost him dearly. Then, in 2013, he left ESPN again following another controversy, moving to SiriusXM before eventually returning in 2014. His 2019 extension went relatively smoothly, $60 million over 5 years. But what came after would once again reveal the pattern he tried so hard to hide. Then came the 2024 negotiations, the ones that truly revealed Stephen A. Smith's real character. During those talks, Stephen A. turned down ESPN's initial offer of $18 million per year, demanding $25 million instead. And when details of that negotiation leaked to press, rather than keeping things private like he expected Molly Qerim to, he went on multiple podcasts defending his worth and comparing himself to NFL quarterbacks. Eventually, he secured a 5-year deal worth between $100 to $105 million in March 2025, along with an additional $36 million from his Sirius XM partnership. But even after locking in this massive payday, Stephen A. Smith kept making remarks about people overvaluing themselves in negotiations, comments widely interpreted as subtle digs at Molly. The final proof of Stephen A.'s hypocrisy came from examining how he handled criticism during his own contract battles versus how he treated Molly's. When people questioned his value during the 2024 talks, Stephen A. accused him of trying to sabotage his deal. Yet when Molly's private negotiations became public, something she never wanted, he joined those same critics, questioning her approach and worth. In the end, this story went far beyond one person leaving a TV show. It became a tale of power, loyalty, betrayal, and glaring hypocrisy at the top of sports media. Stephen A. Smith built his empire by being bold in contract negotiations, making public demands, refusing to settle, and using every bit of leverage to his advantage. But when Molly Qerim tried to do the same thing on a smaller scale, he lectured her about humility and knowing her place. Reports now indicate that Molly Qerim is in discussions with Fox Sports for a deal worth $2 million per year, a 400% increase from what ESPN was paying her. Meanwhile, Stephen A. Smith continues earning $20 plus million annually, still preaching humility in negotiations. The true tragedy isn't that Molly Qerim left ESPN. It's that someone she'd worked beside for 10 years, someone who gained from her contributions, chose to publicly undermine her when she needed support most, while embodying the very behavior he condemned. Stephen A. Smith's handling of Molly Qerim's departure will go down as one of the most hypocritical episodes in sports media history. And the receipts are all there for anyone willing to look. Like this video and click the card on your screen for more.